teams in place, they will always be compliant, and therefore we shall reduce on the need for conflict resolution. I was involved in an accident at workplace. My finger was cut off, my head was knocked, my ears were damaged, my eyes were damaged. It reduces even the need for conflict resolution. With this in place, I would imagine and expect that this Labor Day would bring the tripartite movement together to develop, to agree, first of all, to discuss and agree and accept that what is not there should be put in place. And once it is put in place, it helps the entire community. And once we have mechanisms that help us, we should be able to get back to the drawing board and ensure that workplaces provide a conducive working environment. Workplaces have systems in place whereby the workers have a committee where they can discuss issues. Workers have a system that encourages them to speak to themselves, to share their pain and happinesses, so that they are not suppressed, so that when they have a problem, they know that there is an ear to listen to them, and there is a person or there is a system that will forward their issues. This, when we put together as workers, employers, and of course government as the biggest employer and in the implementer of the guidelines and principles, and also the executive, whereby the laws are put in place and then implemented, I believe that we shall really have a conducive environment for workers. We shall be able to eliminate all forms of harassment of any kind. We shall be able to ensure that employees enjoy their work and they get satisfied, and they will produce what is really relevant and enough to sustain both the worker and the employer. They will be able to defend themselves when there is need for it. They will be able to demand what is theirs and it is not in place, assuming there is no protective wear. They will be able to demand and say, we cannot work without this. Therefore, we would encourage the employers, the workers, to ensure that we provide set guidelines for workers to perform at their workplaces.
All right.
Let me end here for this short time. We'll be coming back again. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Rhoda, and for that background. Doctor, you come in here. You said UPC is a very good partner with the workers when it comes to productivity. But looking at our theme and national theme for this year, and which is our topic that is guiding this discussion, improving access to labor justice, a prerequisite for increased productivity. What do you make meaning of this, Doctor?
Thank you very much, Comrade Amoni Batega, for giving me an opportunity to try to interpret this theme for this year, the Labor Day. Indeed, labor justice is very, very important as regards to labor productivity. You cannot have high labor productivity when there is no labor justice. You and me and the listeners, we know that labor is a very critical factor in production, together with the land, entrepreneurship, and the capital. However, the reality on the ground speaks a different language. How is this language? You find that most of our workers who have been enrolled on work, very few can present appointment letters. And when they do present appointment letters, those letters are very silent on key issues. like leave, like maternity, like in-service training, okay, like saving scheme arrangements, okay, such that you find that most of our workers can be said to be casual. And when you are casual worker, it means that you are doing work where you are not believing in the future, not even in the present, because you are a casual worker. And anything which happens on you, you cannot really follow it up critically. Then also, at the same time also, as our work is over casualized, I'm happy that our wonderful sister here represents the apex of trade unions. Most of our people who are our employees, who are our employers, once you mention the word trade unionism, they can even tell you at the gate that if you want to work here, don't bring here ideas of trade unionism, okay? Such that you find that the employers and the workers, they have been suppressed and they don't have the union voice. And yet it is the union voice, okay, which stands in for a worker, which is the bridge between the worker and the employer. And it is this union which has that heart, that feeling that a worker should have a living wage or a decent wage. A worker should also have better accommodation. A worker should also have a provision for transport. A worker should also have a provision for health or medical care. You find some of these issues in most of our establishments are lacking. And when you have a challenge, when you have a problem, that is when you realize that labor justice is still very far away from what we actually need, okay? Labor justice is still very far away from what we actually need when such challenges remain unresolved. Then, in a number of working places, you may even have a situation that there are no meetings. It is only like instructions, go and do this, go and do this. While some other working places have advanced, they have even put their suggestion boxes that you can put there a comment in a suggestion box and it will be followed up, okay? So, however, we shouldn't also take it too much to the employers that they are not doing their best. They are operating also in an environment which is very, very harsh, especially this post-COVID environment, which led to a good number of workers dying, good number of businesses closing, and in the process, we have had real challenges to appreciate most of these issues. Then when it comes to arrangements of say, there is a labor dispute, you will again find that the people who are supposed to be on ground to handle the issues, they are very few. We have very few labor officers in the country, considering a number of labor complaints which come in. And they always say justice delayed is justice denied. Then when you start rolling it over to say, okay, the labor officer has looked into this issue, it is above him. And since it is above him, is making a reference to this issue to the industrial court, which is supposed to be the one to handle labor-related complaints. However, when it comes to the industrial court, you realize that the actual industrial court is understaffed. Okay? Instead of having 6 judges or 5 judges, it is barely having 2 judges. And instead of having a working staff of about 66, it is having a working staff of about a third, okay, which is about 20 something. Now, in such circumstances, however good the cases have been forwarded by the labor officers, these 2 principal judges will not manage to handle those cases on time, and the result is a case backlog. Then when you look into the case backlog, you find that also these cases especially, they become more or less a fight of David and Goliath. I may be an ordinary worker. I've just had a problem at a place of work. Maybe my hand has been cut, injured, and we are in the process of getting compensation. But my employers are a big multinational company with the best lawyers and with the best representation. Me, an ordinary worker, am minus that representation. So in most cases, it comes up that you can't do much. At times, you feel like pulling out, okay, of the whole case, much as you may want justice to happen. Then, of course, also, when you go deeper and you look critically, that do we have the best working environment? My answer would be that for a good time, we used to have special arrangements where you could be asked which is the industrial town or city of Uganda, and you would automatically say it is Jinja. Okay, which is another industrial part of Uganda? No, it is Kampala industrial area. That's why the name remained like that. But today...
And others have emerged, Mbale, Mbarara,
yes,
and the rest.
But today, on top of the industrial parks which have emerged, in almost all our neighborhoods we live in, you find a bakery has mushroomed, a workshop has mushroomed, such that residential areas now are part of the emerging industrial sector. What does it mean? That how are we going to handle the industrial wastage, the industrial refuge, the air pollution? Okay, these are now serious.
Which are in residential areas.
Yes, these are now very serious issues. Okay, and when there is a bit of a problem that, let me say, it is a fire outbreak which has happened and it is an accident, you find the very difficult situation even for a fire brigade vehicle to reach. Okay, such that our working environment needs to be improved on. I was very happy that the government at one time, through its inspectors on the ground, they started visiting key industries where I think a whistleblower said here it is very difficult. Even for those employers to open gates, it was always a tug of war. And you could see the harsh words they exchange with such type of people who are representing the government and are coming in to find out how are the workers, how are the what. So we are even told that a good number of workers are not protected. My sister here has talked of the protection of the gear. They are not. You look at our mothers and the brothers who keep the city clean, or who pick the garbage. Those are the ones who are supposed to have one of the best protective gears. But you see some of those vehicles and you see the magnitude. And those people are supposed to have even periodical reviews, okay? That how is your health? How are you pushing on? How are you doing? And some jobs, by the way, even require a special diet. You are on computer much of the day. There is a certain amount of milk you are supposed to take. So, labor justice cannot come out of the blue. The government should do a lot by enacting laws as they have enacted, and to ensure that the enacted laws are followed. They don't remain in the books. Once the laws remain in the books, it brings a big problem. Then it's still to do with labor justice. We are delaying to resolve the matter of minimum wage. My sister talked about it here. We need really to agree on how much money we pay our people, mainly sector by sector. If, let me say, it is a house helper, what are the conditions of a house helper? Okay, the condition should be very clear that a house helper should enjoy accommodation. Okay, a house helper should also enjoy almost the same meals she has prepared for the bosses. Okay, a house helper should not also work from Monday to Sunday non-stop, January to December non-stop. Some of these things must come in, okay? And as some of those things come in, they increase productivity once they are implemented. But when they are not implemented, productivity goes down. And it is a question, have we applied labor justice or we have not applied labor justice? Such that the more we standardize our labor practices, the better. One of the listeners said that I enjoy giving examples, especially from Zambia. I will not run away from it. I remember the first day I got my formal appointment as an expatriate teacher. My immediate supervisor, Mr. Emmanuel Munungwe, the education secretary, called me aside and said, "Younger man, I trust Makerere University for whatever they prepared you, and I don't need even to give you an interview. However, I have appointed you, and the contract is talking of so many good things, including a fully furnished house. Now, our schools have had problems that you may go there and you don't find those things. I don't want you to drag us to court. Can we please agree and we write something that you will tolerate whatever you find at your station?"
Which was not part of the contract.
Yes, so I signed that paper in good faith and it was put in my file. Okay, I was not ready to complain, and I found what was even much more than I had bargained for. Because the moment I landed at the station, the headmaster was waiting for me, an Indian expatriate. Now, seeing me with my simple bag, he concluded that I cannot cook for myself, I cannot prepare myself meals, I need to be initiated, mentored immediately, and took looking after me for about 6 months. Lunch, breakfast, supper, and I had even an opportunity whether I have visitors, he would also take on board my visitors. So what am I trying to say? Okay, here is the written script that your conditions are A, B, C, D. But your person who has helped you a lot and has got your job, again is needing humanely that is Sebo, this situation, you may not find it there. But if you don't find it there, don't make it a big issue. Let us agree, okay?
Okay.
So when you try to handle situations like that, it helps a lot and it brings labor productivity. Every time I was remembering that sort of situation, and it brought a lot of closeness or working relationship with my employers, because they were very open and they humbled themselves and they considered me as a person who they should liaise with, explain the situation and understand it. Now you would wonder, in our context today, like in Uganda, which boss can humble himself in that manner? You find that even at times coming close to the boss, it is not possible, okay? Because they have ring-fenced themselves. So, this labor justice will help the country to achieve higher productivity. And when you achieve higher productivity, these targets we talk about, 2030, Vision 2030, Vision 2040, they are within reach because your people are now more productive, they are hardworking, and they are motivated.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Ranga. From your observations, but
Yes.
also discussions, both of you seem to be so much centered on the most common labor rights violations in Uganda and how they can be addressed. And but would love to know the effective of Uganda's labor laws in protecting workers' rights and what reforms that are needed. And Doctor would love also to address that.
Okay.
As I will come to Rhoda on now that you're coming from the trade unions, I would love to know the role of those trade unions that some you represent here that play in promoting labor justice in Uganda. We have seen these challenges come through, but how are you helping us as trade unions? How are you helping the workers in this country? But first, we would love to know how Uganda's labor laws are protecting the Uganda's workers' rights and how we expect these reforms to be addressed. Do we need some laws, Doctor, to address this?
Yes. The laws have been enacted and the laws need to be implemented. The laws are very, very important in this way that Uganda belongs to International Labour Organization, and these international standards or laws have been officially domesticated in the country, and the International Labour Organization helps us to put things in place. Now, these registrations help to refer wherever there are labor complaints and wherever there are labor disputes, okay? If you have worked in civil service, of course for you are in civil service, there is this language of what does the standing orders say, okay? If you have done this, what does the standing orders say, okay? You find that there is, once the laws are there is personal sort of censorship or consciousness or awareness, okay? That if I do this, it is against the law. If I do this, it is part of the law. For instance, we have key registrations like the National Employment Act of 2006. It has its own details. Then we have the Occupational Safety and Health Act, okay? You find that, for instance, most of our schools have been told.
And Labor Unions Act 206.
Yes. Most of our schools have been told to have facilities which can handle this lightning. They have been told to have facilities where you can access dormitories. they have been told to have facilities like of fire breakers, okay? Then also most of these places like hotels, restaurants, all the stuff which works in places where we must have meals, where we must have drinks, which manufacture something of that nature, must be regularly reviewed. Their health standards must be regularly reviewed. Then we have Workers' Compensation Act. In case there is a big challenge at place of work, you are injured, there is a reference to the law and how you can be compensated. Then we have the labor disputes and the arbitration and settlement, which was amended. The various stages of arbitration, how it comes in when a conflict has come, or the labor officer intervening, or does the establishment itself have a disciplinary organization where you push, like for instance, political parties, okay? We have our disciplinary committee, which receives cases and makes recommendations, which recommendations are now forwarded to a national council and the delegates conference, but that is for a political party. Then of course we have Labor Union Act of 2006. So these regulations provide a framework of addressing disputes and preventing disputes, and at the same time controlling disputes that they don't escalate and reach into a big thing. Some workplaces have had fights, physical fights, okay, between a subordinate and a senior. That is indeed very unfortunate. I think I saw recently a very unfortunate video on the social media where an investor, I don't know whether it was because of lack of proper communication skills, was addressing workers in the morning, maybe in the afternoon, and when he talked to a certain worker, immediately they started exchanging blows. This one tried to bring in kung fu, and the worker became very tough on him as if something has been boiling and waiting for an excuse. Of course, that was very extreme. Ugandans are normally very polite people, very gentle people, but
by the time someone chooses that, it has
Yes.
been
yes,
extreme.
it went out of control, and I really felt sympathetic because the other one was a foreign investor, and the rest of the team was there until they tried to separate them. So here it helps a lot when we have these laws in place. Then the other element which I must say, that on top of these laws, there has been also a law which has been amended to decentralize this labor justice. That when you are seeking labor justice, whether you are in Chigezi, okay, or in Akole, it can be handled from that side, and only to be referred to this side when things have not worked out very, very well, okay? Like normally in law we have this situation of referring cases to higher officers. So the labor officers normally handle labor disputes, but based on law, which law we have already amplified. And when the cases are beyond them, they will refer those cases to the industrial court for jurisdiction, for arbitration, okay? And the industrial court also will try to see that all the court cases which are brought, they scrutinize them, they understand them, and they sit and pass.
But how effective are these courts and tribunals? Are they well equipped? Do they have judges? Judges really professional? How come we still have all these platforms that you've just mentioned, that all these laws, the Employment Act, the Termination of Contract, the Labor Unions Act, and you also mentioned about the Occupational Safety and Health Act 2006, but people of Uganda, the workers of this country are still suffering?
I would say that the industrial court needs to be well funded and well staffed. At the moment, there is a big challenge. The industrial court is under the direct supervision of Ministry of Labour, Gender and Social Development. It is not part of the Ministry of Justice. Now that one also brings in its own challenges, because the Ministry of Justice budget is much higher, while the budget of Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is a bit limited, okay? And you find that Ministry of Justice is more inclined in handling a diverse of cases. So at the industrial case, they are limited, and indeed the judges are 2.
Okay.
We still lack the 5 judges. Then the supportive staff, I think they are about to, according to the latest records, they are about 22 instead of being 66. Okay. And then when it comes to having places where they can handle cases, modernization of the systems, having those up-to-date records which have been digitized, the process is yet to sink in.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Knowing that at least we have platforms that the people of Uganda, especially the workers, can run to, especially those industrial courts, and also have these laws, would love to know the contribution, the role that trade unions do play in promoting this labor justice that we're talking about, especially in this country. And having you representing trade unions is a privilege to us, and would have to have you to have it from the horse's mouth. Rhoda?
Thank you so much. Picking up from the discussion of Dr. Lwanga, affirming that there are provisions, there are laws, labor laws that are really governing the employment processes in Uganda. We appreciate all that, and as trade unions, we also appreciate government for allowing trade unions to work in Uganda, though there are some limitations. My brother, Dr. Lwanga, has raised it clearly that some workplaces are not accessible, which is true. But that does not make us lose hope. Under the trade union movement and the Public Service Tribunal, which was also put in place, the Public Service Negotiation Council, which is also in place, there are procedures that public service, government rather, is working with trade unions to ensure that every workplace has at least a committee, especially in the formal employment. Government ministries, government agencies, or have not yet registered those committees, but there is a provision for it. What the trade union has done is, first of all, one, to mobilize the workers, recruit the workers into trade unions, train the trade unions who have been able to know what is right and what is wrong, who know their rights, and that's why they are able to speak. Maybe that is the reason that I am here, after benefiting from that trade union training, being able to know and being able to speak for the workers, those ones who cannot say anything about themselves. So the trade union has really tried, one, first of all, to ensure that government puts in a tribunal for the public sector unions, the platform for public sector unions, where, because when we look at the employment in Uganda, there is formal and informal employment. We have those ones directly employed by the government. Government of Uganda is the biggest employer. We cannot run away from that, and we appreciate that fact. And the informal employers, these are the investors, factories, and small household initiatives. So you find that trade unions have tried to mobilize in the public sector and even in the private sector, train these workers and empower them with knowledge, empower them with knowledge about an individual as a human right, knowledge for an individual to know what is his role, what is he supposed to do, how does he report cases. Trade unions have put in place structures from shop steward. These are the low grassroots structures whereby a worker or a cleaner in an established organization recruited in a trade union is able to find a person to speak to and register a complaint. And in trade unions, we encourage documentation. When you have a case, you report to the shop steward. Make sure that you concretize the evidence. Make sure that you document the information that you are presenting. This helps in following up. Except for cases where people shy off to bring evidence, it becomes very difficult. And you find that even the cases that have been presented to the industrial court, some of them are clogging the court because some of them lack evidence. And I will take this opportunity to encourage the workers outside there. If there is any grievance, if there is any challenge, if there is anything that you have encountered at the workplace, make sure that you speak to your shop steward, provide evidence, and document the complaint that you have. Let it be documented so that in the event that that person whom you shared your challenge is transferred or has left the organization, there is an easy follow-up. There is pen and paper information for a follow-up. That is what I would encourage. It would help even for these cases to be settled at the grassroots level, at the shop steward level. Coining our discussion together, true, there is the challenge of unionization at mostly the Indian and Chinese organizations. And I would ask government at this point to really consider that if we have invited an investor into our country and he is going to employ the citizens of this country, he should take a responsibility, a humanitarian mind, humanitarian action to treat these people as human beings. The complaints that we have are coming from these Chinese organizations.
Some are beating them.
That is true. And I would really, it is my plea to government to consider that these Chinese are welcome as investors, but they should treat the human resource as human beings, not as machines. Even a machine, when you mishandle it, it will jam. It will stop. It will stop working. So it is my plea to government that, please, now that we are embracing social and labor justice as a theme for this year's Labor Day, let's get to the drawing board, like I said earlier on. Let's get to the drawing board and accept that the labor that we use is human. And a human being has a human right. A right to health, a right to good living, a right to happiness, by the way. Because it doesn't make sense when I have the money and I can't be happy. How do I walk into a restaurant, I want to eat food, and I'm given food and I eat food when I am standing? I can't enjoy the food. I cannot approve that. So let's get to the drawing board. Let's come together, the tripartite. Let's sit down and agree and accept and give proper guidelines to the Chinese and to the Indians to treat the labor that they are using as human beings, not as machines.
Okay.
Continuing the discussion, it is true we don't have a minimum wage, but we could have it, but it is obsolete. And the discussions are going on. The parliamentary team that
which has failed this to be implemented. We have it but not implemented. And you're coming from an organization that would expect to really advocate for this.
Going back to my previous discussion, I was talking about investors. That diversity in the employment sector is the one which is making it difficult for even government to implement the minimum wage. It draws back to us coming again together. There is need for a discussion between government, the investors, and the employers and the trade unions.
But also, Rhoda, talking about the wage that you have just brought up, some people are paid differently, yet doing the same work. How can we ensure that the fair wages and equal pay for equal work in Uganda's labor market?
We need to consider the diversity of the employment. There is informal employment, there is formal employment, there is private sector. A private sector, of course, is an investor who is looking for profits, and he will pay what he feels can bring results to him. So that it brings back again to a harmonious situation. There needs the need for government to bring together the private sector employers together with the trade unions to harmonize the situation. See what is happening now with government institutions, what they call the RAPEX, rationalization. Some agencies, all agencies are paying a little bit higher pay, better pay than the mainstream ministries. Now,
example where an executive director, ED, of a government institute or agency is paid highly, and another government agency executive director paid less, they are all EDs in this case.
That is the effect. That is the effect of the diversity of employment in Uganda, where we have private employers, public employers, government employers. These people need to come together and work together. There is need for a negotiation. There is need for harmonization. The rationalization program.
Do you support it?
To a certain extent. By the way, I am a victim of the rationalization program. I work with Uganda National Meteorological Authority, which is due for mainstreaming. As I speak,
I'm not to the ministry.
As I speak, I even don't know whether I have a job or not after 31st June. Yes, because where I have been in the authority, we were paying some reasonable amount of money. But that wouldn't be the case. The weakness of the Meteorological Authority is our concern, because the services that we provide, we provide perishable goods, we provide perishable services, we issue forecasts which expire after a certain time. We need establishment to ensure that we have the data that can be used to do analysis, to do forecasting. And if this...
But rationalization, Madam Rhoda, is not about taking those positions down or letting some workers leave, but we are looking at the bigger picture, the broader picture of this. You being to the bigger platform that you are able to do that very role that you're talking about, but with an established institution, still you'd be doing almost the same.
If you trace the history of meteorology from a department to an authority, from where it has moved from one ministry to the other, meaning that the ministries that it has moved to were not understanding it. We appreciate Ministry of Water and Environment because it understood the uniqueness of the ministry and of the department and granted it authority to move forward to be an agency because it understood the uniqueness.
Are you saying that when you go to the mainstream, you'll not be perfecting like you are doing right now?
We continue to work, but there is that access to resources. That is what we are looking at. And the theme of this year, we are looking at labor justice, which requires that the access, fairness for all. Where we are working under certain conditions. You know that there is some target that you achieve. And whereas when you are in a bigger institution, sometimes it is difficult for monitoring and supervision. That is where the challenge is. But when you are in a small institute, a small unit, it is easier to supervise and monitor the services and the procedures and everything.
Glad that you're on the same about our topic today. You're glad that you're a mother. We have also another challenge of child labor. How can we address the issue of child labor in Uganda?
I thank God that I'm a mother, and I'm a mother of boys. Incidentally, they all work in my house. They cook food, they wash the dishes, they do everything. Because we don't have a girl in our home, so they have to work. Talking about child labor, if we look back and flash back, what is the cause of child labor? It takes us to unfair access to employment, unfair access to resources, unfair access to services. You will find a family, maybe it's only the man who is employed, and he is employed in a job of a meager resource. And these children have to eat, these children have to go to school. And looking at the era of today, every mother has to try to make sure that she sustains herself and sustains the family. This, to a certain extent, leads to child labor, where the parents use these children in some places to earn some small money, which is not right. As a trade union, we have said children should be guided to work. They should do work under supervision, and they should do work that is commensurate to their age and to their physical structures. You don't have to subject a child to carrying a 20-liter jerrycan because that child is going to earn 500 shillings to buy himself a piece of bread for breakfast. No. But we share with mothers and say, let's go to the borehole, let's fetch the water. They help you maybe draw the water in the jerrycan, and then somebody carries. That one helps it very clearly, so that when the money comes, these children know that they participated and we are sharing.
Okay.
It is absurd that even when we use these children the way as in a form of guiding them, we sometimes even get the money and diversify the money and don't buy food still for the children. And this blame goes to us, the parents, which is very passionate.
Okay.
But as trade unions, we don't, and we say for a child to be trained, a child should work under the guidance and the supervision of either a parent or a person who is skilled in that thing, and it should be a gradual process.
Before you go for a break, I would love also to put this straight to you, because you are also coming from that gender. What is the impact of gender discrimination on labor justice in Uganda, and how can it be addressed? Quickly as we go for the break, Rhoda.
Thank you so much. You have touched another passionate part of me. You see, when we talk about gender, we are looking at women, girls, boys, men, the elderly, the disabled, who must all have the same access to everything. Where I work, our theme is weather and climate is for all. There should be no discrimination. Our role is to provide information for all. When it rains, it does not rain on the trees. It rains and falls on everybody, falls on everything. So there should be no discrimination. When the sun shines, it shines on all of us. Why then should we say this one should not get this and this one should not get this? Let's look at God. God is fair to all of us. I have a problem with Ammon, but God provides the same. I am here cursing Ammon. Ammon. You did to me. But God says, I will rain on Ammon's garden and even on my garden. A witch comes and bewitches your garden, but still God rains on your garden and in the garden of the witch. So let's be like God. Let's treat everybody equally. I earlier on said that these workers are human beings. It is something that we think that women don't work, women cannot do certain things. Let's give them the opportunity. And it is clear, when you are given an opportunity and you fail, it is also easier for me to accept that I failed that task. Let me do this other one. But if the opportunity is not there, and then you just curtail it completely and say no for women, no for men. That is unfair.
Do you agree that there are some roles or work that is supposed to be done by men and not women?
When you use the word supposed to, I will ask you, who put it there? But we accept that there are certain things that are unique to women and there are things that are unique to men. Like childbearing is unique to women. But
So is construction to men.
But these days, have you seen women failing to climb up the structures? They have done it. So it is that women cannot do this. But give opportunity. Give the opportunity. We call the weakness of a woman. Once a woman has produced a child, why is it that the men love to carry the children and pose with them? So that means that when I have done the unique part of childbearing, the men can take over from there. In the same way, once the foundation is laid and the ladder, a woman can access the ladder and climb up and nail her timber on the roof. Opportunities. Let's give women the opportunities. Let's give opportunities. In the room, Dr. Lwanga is a person with disability. Isn't he working? Isn't he able to speak to the audience? Supposing we put him out, supposing his parents said, "Oh, and they didn't educate him, would he be here? I am saying, let's give opportunities to all the genders. Where one fails, it is easy for a person to accept that here I have failed, but here I can do better. Thank you so much.
Interesting. This is UBC Ground Zero. We are live on 4 radio stations covering entire Uganda: UBC Radio, UBC Butebo, UBC Magic, and UBC Western Nile, and also Voice of Butebo. This is UBC Ground Zero. I'm Pere Amanutega is my name. I have a privilege and honor to have in the studios of UBC Dr. Christopher Lwanga is the head of research, ideology, and documentation coming from Uganda People's Congress. We have the opportunity to have a team Rhoda. Alice is the executive board member coming from NOTU, and we also have online, we're going to have online Dr. Honorable Abdul Biakatonda, who is the member of parliament representing workers, and later on we're going to be joined by Joshua Chalimpa, who is the head of communication coming from Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Keep your messages coming through on 0701 24 26 47, and what you think needs to be done to make sure that the workers in this country really enjoy and we increase productivity, but also looking at labor justice as we wait to celebrate to join the world to commemorate International Labor Day on 1st May, which is in just Nkuna. I'm taking a very short break. I'm coming back in just a bit. I pray don't go away.
This is Ground Zero Season 2. Stay tuned. We shall be right back. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about that. Nobody showed. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda. Welcome back. Ground Zero Season 2 continues.
Welcome. Very short break. Ambaire Aman Otega is my name. We are live and clear on 4 radio stations. You are live, sir.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to this edition. We are talking about International Labor Day
Yes, sir.
and presenting the biggest constituency in the parliament and the country of this country. It is a privilege having you on this edition. We are looking at the national theme, which is improving access to labor justice, which is a prerequisite for increased productivity.
Well, thank you so much.
Welcome to this edition, Honorable Abdul Biakatonda, and maybe what do you think of our theme, our national theme, and our topic in this edition?
Thank you, Amon. Improving access to justice, equity, the future of work is very important. A very important theme, and I want to urge our listeners really to take stock of where we have come from, and basically looking at a number of things, because work is a very important component, and we are basically looking at what we call decent work, which is productive work for women and men in conditions of freedom, equity, security, and human dignity. This is very important because one, we want to see that at least we touch base, we are comparable to other economies. Uganda is a promising economy, and what I want to say is that we are currently at about 48 billion US dollars. But this can double when we really ensure that workers are handled properly. We are talking about a number of provisions. For example, Uganda is one of the constituents of ILO, and one of such provisions, we are looking at ILO Convention C87, which talks about the right to organize and collective bargaining, and then the one on collective bargaining C98. Of course, when we do this, I think we shall be handling a number of crucial issues. But what we need to focus on, we have C95, Convention 195, which talks about minimum wage, and C155, which talks about safety and health at work, occupational safety and health at work. These have been cascaded into our constitution, and when you look at Article 21, it talks about equity and freedom of association. Article 29, 1E talks about the right to organize, the right to form associations, including unions. And Article 43, Clause 3 talks about collective bargaining. So what we want to encourage workers, because we are looking at a tripartite arrangement where it is very well structured, and we are talking about compromise. And in the tripartite arrangement, we are talking about employers, employees, and government. This is very important. So going forward, I think equity is very important, because what I realize is that we need to do competence profiling, and we need to grow the economy. That we can do when we look at workers, because like one writer, Adam Smith, he asserted that nobody can fulfill his needs without buying from another person. And then he says the productive worker force is the store for value. So do we add value? Do we really, is the workplace a healthy and a safe environment for people to work? These are very important things, because when we do this, it means workers will be motivated, and at the end of the day, the economy can grow.
But from your observations and experience, Honorable, what are the current labor productivity trends in this country?
What I want to say is that, one, we have looked at the legal infrastructure, and Uganda is one of the countries with very promising infrastructures which are actually shelved. For example, when we talk of the Public Service Negotiating, Consultative, and Dispute Settlement Machinery Act of 2008, we are talking about when they are taking instructions. All these are properly stipulated. So we want to actually urge government to look at these aspects and ensure that workers, like Adam Smith has put it, they are a store for value.
when we do this, we can actually grow because we can have a number of cases even within the private sector in other economies. You can look at a company like Amazon. Amazon has about to United States dollars 450 billion, which is more 10 times more than our GDP as Uganda. And now our focus should be growing the economy through the workers accessing, improving access to justice, equity, and future of work. You find that, for example, in a workplace, a worker has worked for 10 years, but then could be anguished because of lack of promotion. There is no competence profiling. A worker thinks he's actually more qualified, but then they are bringing another person who is less qualified above that person. All these are things that actually have caused mental anguish. And that per se makes the workplace not a safe and healthy environment to work. So as a country, we have a number of things. So we need to look at HRD, Human Resource Development Programs. We focus on ensuring that at least we put policies of work, implement those ones that are in place. This can actually help our economy to pick up. How many, for example, when we look at Article Convention 29, we talk of forced labor convention. Some people actually in work that is not actually desirable. You find quite often on the roads, but the borders are being harassed. You ask, what is the problem? Why can't you actually have guidelines and guide this? Tomorrow they tell you somebody has worked for 60 years, but his driving permit is his class is being put to class B. That means you are causing even unemployment that person in the first place. So you'll find that people get disturbed mentally. So these are issues, and I wish a government could really look at expert-led discussion, engage in experts, because these things workers are not managed like machines. They are sophisticated, and they have a number of paradigm shifts that we need to make and ensure that we grow as an economy.
Honorable, we seem to be fronting everything to attributing it to government, but
Yes.
also looking at common labor rights violations in this country. How are you representatives of the workers, especially in the House, helping the workers in this country?
Actually, what we are doing recently,
and looking at some of the messages that are coming through from the listeners, people are not getting their NSSF. Others have been getting accidents at the workplaces, but they are not even treated or compensated. There are so many things that are coming through.
This is they are very right, because you are right. What happens is that, like I said, the infrastructure is in place. Recently in Parliament, we're looking at social security, and we come up with an amendment, the midterm access, where we are saying a worker who has worked for 45 years and has saved for 10 years can access up to 20% of their savings. This in itself is trying to help workers so that they can actually learn the aspect of investment and start actually learning the business enterprise before they even retire. That is very important. Then the other one is, which is critical, like I said, we have laws which actually are in line with the ILO conventions. For example, we are talking about a healthy and safe work environment. And these aspects, actually, that's what I'm saying. Adam Smith says workers are the store for value. If you don't actually handle workers properly, then you're not actually supposed you'll not grow as an economy. So it's important to look at those aspects. Why does this require somebody to retire and take 10 years without getting their pension? These are the key things we are talking about. Why does somebody take 3 months without getting a salary? And then how do you expect somebody to fight? How do you expect to fight corruption smoothly when people are just doing that? What are the salary notches that are available that people can actually focus on? These are all issues that we need to streamline. So basically, we need a paradigm shift and ensure that at least the workplaces are healthy and safe for our workers.
What happened to the wage implementation, minimum wage implementation? We have it, but it is still a myth, as if we don't have.
The one we had previously was outdated and was 600 shillings per month. And then we came up with a bill which was processed by Parliament and forwarded to His Excellency the President. We are trying to engage government with dialogue should at least the president really reconsiders and the bill is minimum wage bill is signed. Because what happened was that there was a misconception, which they said when we introduce a minimum wage bill act in place, the investors will run out of the country. So we are asking, why is it that it's Uganda in the region which doesn't have a minimum wage? Whereas
But
in Kenya, it is
investors
there,
are
it is
not
in Rwanda.
investors are not running from other countries. Kenya and many other countries have the same, and they have investors there.
They have more investors. That's the question. And when you do not have a minimum wage, it means even it becomes difficult for collective bargaining, because you find that even from our domestic workers, some are paying 30,000 a month, others are paying 50,000. So we want just a minimum. We can say let the minimum wage be 120, 150. Then that's the benchmark that we can set. So I think we are trying to engage government on this, and because ensure that it's actually in place, because this is the contravention of Convention 195, which talks about the minimum wage, and then of course Convention 131, which talks about fixing the minimum wage. So it means we are not compliant.
Okay.
The worker placement. We don't adhere to international minimum standards.
I understand, Doctor, but as we let you go, how can we promote social dialogue and tripartisan, especially when looking at the government? You just mentioned employers and workers, especially to address the labor justice issues in Uganda.
Now, I think going forward, we have even introduced, moved to Parliament. We want, first of all, to ensure that elaborate structures are in place. For example, when we talk of the labor officers, do they know what to do? Are they facilitated? Are they really independent of their work? When we look at, I mentioned about the public service negotiating machinery. Do we have consultative committees? Because consultative committees are supposed to look at the grievances, salary issues in every workplace in the public institutions, government, ministries, department, agencies, and even local governments. This law was put in place in 2008, but has not been operationalized. You find that people will actually give you with this and then remove with the other hand. So that's another area we need to focus on. The other area, within that law, we have what we call the National Negotiating and Consultative Council, which has the Minister of Public Service, Minister of Finance, Minister of Justice, Minister of Local Government, and Minister of Gender. These are supposed to come up with a number of policies.
Okay.
So that from the consultative committees, they can actually feed into that National Negotiating Council. Then they handle grievances. And these are supposed to be taken actually directly by the Minister of Public Service to Cabinet. And then we should look at balancing the salaries, because we are looking at ILO Convention 100, which talks about equal remuneration. That is very important.
Interesting.
And then from that, the Minister of Gender has just set up the Labor Advisory Board, which is very important. Then we have the Public Service Tribunal, the Minister of Public Service. When we operationalize all this, it means there will be access to justice. And then we are saying, let's actually empower the industrial court. In other countries like Zambia, even in Kenya, I think they have formed even the industrial court is as a number of judges actually more than 5. But Uganda has only 2, and we find that this causes backlog. Then we are talking of digitalizing the industrial court, so that actually by the click of the button they can be able to access their details and be faster.
Thank you, Honorable. Time is not on our side, but looking at International Labor Day, we recognize the contribution of workers mainly, but also on this day we celebrate the hard work and achievements of labor groups or workers. On this day, or which group of workers or a worker do you celebrate? If I may put this right.
Labor Day is for both workers in the formal and informal sector.
Is there a particular group of workers that you celebrate or would love to recognize on this edition?
Oh, of course, all workers, based on their achievements, are celebrated. And these are quite a number of people. They are working in deplorable conditions. Of course, the government has made effort to enhance some workers' salaries, that is good. But then we are saying if the economy allows, let's actually enhance across the board. So that's why it's difficult. Yes.
I understand you're traveling, Doctor. I would love to let you and your last comment on this.
I want to thank all the workers of Uganda, but what is the key is let them be adaptive to technological changes, issues of environment, and of course we are going through mergers and rationalization. Let them take heart and ensure that at least we are in touch so that everybody is deployed in a safe and healthy environment so that we can actually develop the country, Uganda.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for
Thank
that
you,
time.
Amon, and the listeners.
All right. Reaching to us live from the other side is Honorable Dr. Abdul Biakatonda, who is the Member of Parliament representing workers in the Parliament of Uganda. I'll use this very opportunity and time to go through your messages, but it is also your right time to call on 0776 511 426. The number to call is 0776 511 426 and raise any concern or what do you think needs to be done to make sure that we increase productivity but also labor justice in this country. I will begin with your calls, but I will be reading the messages for my guests in the studios to answer them. Dr. Christopher Rwanga and Rhoda Als. UBC Radio.
Yes, hello.
You're live and clear on 4 radio stations.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm on this is Baguma. Now, the program is very good.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, but my biggest concern is really these celebrations have come. First of all, there are too many. Almost every day there is a national celebration. And the worst part of this is that the citizens, the ordinary people, are not benefiting at all. And therefore, as we celebrate International Labour Day, I would like to propose that there is a need to customize and localize these type of activities at the lowest level possible. Because when you talk of a worker in Uganda, people and citizens, people think of those in government, people think of those civil servants, people think of Ministry of Public Service and local government and then Ministry of Defense. That's all. But they forget the worker who is the most essential person. This is the lowest, the one who opens and closes the toilet, the one who sweeps the fitting room, the boardroom. That boy, the girl who is the Samba girl, the Samba boy, the tea girl in Fort Portal where we're going to celebrate International Labour Day. Look at the girls working in the tea factories, the tea industry, the sweepers, the drivers, the cleaners. Now the mobile money girls, what all these MTN, what, cashiers in offices, when you go security forces, the people at the quarter guard, the drivers, the escorts, these people are never considered at all at such a time. And so I would like to, since our MP is also part of the program, to look at the laws governing this labor issue and then revise it.
Okay.
International Labour Day should really come to the lowest level. I would suggest that can we borrow relief from religion?
All right.
Look at Christmas, look at Easter, look at Eid celebration. They are really celebrated at the lowest level. Christmas, for example, Easter, Eid, everybody in the village participates. So can we find a way of localizing this type of activity rather than having the national all the time? Now you go to Winner Market, you ask people about the Labor Day. They not even I understand. They don't know about. They think that is for people in government.
Okay.
So that's my contribution.
Thank you so much, Baguma, our elder there, raising serious concerns in this edition. UBC Ground Zero, your name and where you're calling from.
Good morning, Amon Mutega.
A very good morning to you.
We are talking to Juma here at Mutega, the best roundabout.
Long time, Juma.
Long time too. Anyway, I'm alive.
All right.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing a good table today. Some sectors in the government which deserve not to be celebrated. Mine always, what itch my head is about the corruption. You bring all those arms of the government, you'll find that it's a sector which has failed to function, but they are there in existence. For me, I will always talk about the people who took iron sheet for Karamoja and the big names, the big ranks in the government offices, but the few who were unlucky, till today, they are still facing the consequences. But the majority who claim to be innocent in that act, and yet all of them, they deserve by then to be the office until per law, as law regarded to. Then they will resume back after proven they were not fault in that act. Then they were supposed to regain back their offices. So that one killed my head that there is no laws in Uganda which is supposed to be sanctioned.
Okay.
Mine is about corruption.
All right.
Serving the nation.
Raising serious concerns, especially on corruption, that it is watering down all the achievements that we would realize as a country, but also the workers. UBC.
Yes.
Your name and where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Mukono. This is Mr. Simon.
Simon Mukono.
Yes, I'm good for that program.
Okay, thank you.
We are now ending for Labor Day. Today for workers. But what is affecting us as youth, we are crying a lot. We were working in a company. These people are not supporting us a lot.
In which way?
The time for increments, they cannot even put anything on top of that. You get a machine operator who works day and night. You work a full week night, but you cannot get anything. Even allowance in the morning, nothing is there. Why?
You work for extra hours which are not paid for.
Yeah, not even what. Which salary is that?
Okay. Thank you so much, Simon, for raising such a concern. And it's going to be addressed. Butebo, UBC West Nile, UBC Magic, UBC Radio, and Voice of Bundbujo. Live and clear. Your name, sir?
This is Mr. Sengo.
Sengo. Calling from?
I'm calling from Namongo.
Namgongo.
In 1962, Uganda were the one working in China, and they were the one working on roads, on all those constructions. But why now in Uganda now? I thought now we will be working now in other countries and other countries. But why now? Too much China than investors in Uganda. Why?
Okay.
And there's nothing we are gaining from them. So for us now.
But they say they are giving job opportunities to the people of Uganda.
Which job opportunity? Job after crying. How can you go and eat the food when they are talking bad on that food? They say, you just move to eating people's food.
Okay.
You cannot eat the food when they are talking bad on that.
Thank you, Sango. Voice of Bundbujo, Magic, UBC Radio, Butebo, and West Nile.
Yeah, you are talking to Martin.
Martin. Yes, Martin.
I'm on a long time. I heard even the voice of Juma.
Yes.
And everyone.
A long time indeed.
Yeah. My side is going to private companies, organization. You find a guard is working 200 and the client is paying money like 1 million. And the company pays a guard is 200. How much that the company is gaining from that private guard? And even it cannot include anything, treatment and what. You people, if you are working in the government, try to look for organizations also very well.
Okay.
Right now we have another disease called the red eyes. It has affected Muyega side. Even that one also the government can't see us very well.
Okay.
So that is my problem.
Thank you, Martin. I'm glad that you're part of the program.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, sir. Let me pick a few calls, then we go back to the studios. UBC Radio.
Hello.
You're live.
Yes, I'm Kat.
I'm
Kat, but I'm calling in from Sonde.
Sonde. All right.
Yes, Yes, my concern is on people working in factories. For sure, those people are really suffering. I wish if government can at least implement some laws on people working on factories. You find these Chinese or these Indians, the way they treat those workers in factories is not good. Hello?
You're still clear.
Yes, it's not good. You find when someone even gets an accident in factory, those people, they don't bother mind of that person to give over first aid or treat that person, and yet that person is doing their work.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. UBC Butebo, UBC West Nile, UBC Magic, UBC Radio. We are talking about International Labor Day, and we have the privilege and to have very pertinent guests in the studios, Atim Roda, Executive Board Member Notu, and Dr. Christopher Wanga. We are looking at improving access of labor justice and a prerequisite for increased productivity. UBC Radio.
Hello?
You're live and clear.
You're speaking to Martin from Bugolo.
Yes, Martin.
I would like to comment on the issue of that point that we are discussing about. Now, you find that in a private security organization, or these private companies, like these people working in factories, organizations, and other private institutions, someone earns 200, is renting, he has to...
Your network is not clear.
He has to also save something. He has to send something to home people. At the end of the day, their card ends up. That's why most people doesn't have national cards, national IDs if you check on them right now.
Okay.
So I would like to request the government to put an eye on private institutions as well, because they are really badly off.
All right. Thank you. Time is not on my side. I would love to pause calls at the moment, and then we go to the studios for my guests to address these concerns. And if we get time, we're going to get the representative of the Ministry of Gender, Social Labor Development to answer some of the queries, but also update the country on the upcoming event of International Labor Day. Let me get this one last. UBC Radio.
Yes. Yeah, talking to Felix from Kololo.
Your name again?
I'm saying we are talking to Felix from Kololo.
All right.
We are requesting the government to think about the security sectors. If you see, most of security sectors is the one suffering in Kampala here. Because of no payment. If you find someone that are killing him because of stealing, you will find his security personnel.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Hey, Juma, Simon, Sengo, Martin, Kasbat, and many others, and so many calls coming in, but all are on the same people complaining about the working conditions, their privileges that they're supposed to get at the workplaces, but also the environments that they work in. So many messages coming through. I can see Absalam from Jinja, Paul Oyembe, and Sam Makumbi from Makindi, Achan Jackson, Bonde Wadulo, many others coming in, and so many messages that I would try to read some. Someone says that some jobs I am working in Namave in a certain industry would not want to disclose, but I'm entitled to take at least milk after 4 hours. To be sincere, I work more than 16 hours and I don't take any milk, and even water is not provided. We are not given anything And when one of my colleagues tried to complain, he was chased away even without pay. Some industries have imprisoned workers, that is according to Sam Makumbi. Some industries have imprisoned workers. Once you enter into that facility, you are not supposed to get out. What happens, and you don't know what happens to the other world or outside. You can't even access their premises. We have seen members of parliament even being blocked by some industries. What does that mean to the people who work there? I have been working for a company and which has not remitted my NSSF money for now 6 years. I've really complained, but nothing has come through. And Jackson says I lost my arm while working for a certain industry there in Mbale, but it is my family that treated me and my little savings. That company was left alone and nothing they did. Workers still striking because of low pay, and others are paying highly, both in this country and outside. What is the problem in Uganda? That is according to Absalam. And someone says, and investors come here to embarrass people because they have come to be attracted by cheap labor. But does cheap labor mean that we are cheap, that we can't really fight for our rights? So many messages coming through, but I would be reading some, and let me go back to studios if we can use these minutes to answer the queries and the concerns of the people of Uganda that you have heard by yourselves raising serious concerns. Dr. Rwanga.
Thanks very much, Comrade Amon. We thank all the callers, the listeners who have made it an effort to call in and share the concerns affecting our labor force in regard to labor justice and productivity. Indeed, it is true a number of our workers are suffering silently, but we may need to go back to some old values. When we talk about Uganda, Uganda had a very buoyant industrial and service sector. This was inherited from the British under the mother umbrella of UDC, Uganda Development Corporation. Then Uganda Development Corporation had the various subsidiaries. And since it was the motherboard of Parastatal, it went deeper into various subsidiaries that facilities are there. And the labor is enjoying its contribution. And under that arrangement, a national program was being rolled out where you find a language of junior porters, medium porters, and senior porters. And these environments, whether it is junior porters, they had their decent facilities in their own way. And on peak of our activity, you could see even a tracker of Chibuku. Chibuku, this is ordinary beer brewed from this Emirate sorghum, okay, but from the side of Chibuku company, taking it to our workers. Then when you go to the places of work, you could find a cafeteria for the junior workers, for the middle workers, and for the upper workers, okay? And they made it sure that even when you get a visitor at a place of work, that visitor can easily qualify for a meal. Today we are talking of a different situation, such that our environment is not okay. The government pushed out of work, and when it pushed out of work, it left it to the investor. and the investor is looking at what he can take home at the end of the day. And it is very, very difficult to regulate him in a sea of unemployment.
Okay.
Then when it comes to reminding workers, employers, that please, old age of our people is very important. Wherever somebody is working, ensure that remittances of National Social Security Fund are taken to the institution is required, such that when this person leaves work, can adjust to that life. However, you may not blame them at the same time, because our working environment has very high costs. Water is expensive, electricity is very expensive, transport is very expensive, and I think you have had so many of these companies failing to perform, and at times government forced to come and bail them out. I know time is not on our side, and you are almost telling me to stop here. However, I would still
so many concerns coming from security companies.
Yes, I would still want to retaliate in this manner, that let us go back to the situation of trade unionism, because those security companies are not members of trade unions. Their security guards don't belong to trade union. So it is only the spirit of trade union which can rescue all our suffering people. Okay, all these workers must affiliate and belong to a trade union. That is when you can negotiate and really bring these sort of situations where you are saying a security guard is working, where he's working, the company is paid 2 million. Him, he gets 200 per
or even less.
Or less, okay. And at times,
and this person has a rent, has some.
And even told that even on duty, either you are a burden of the person who is employing you, whom you are guarding, or you are a burden to yourself, okay? Remember, most of these decent workers who used it to be posted, you could even see vehicles taking them food. These days, you don't see that. So, as a country, I think we are very cruel on our people. So
what should they do?
The only way is trade unionism. That is the only better way, because even if a regulation is passed by Parliament and adopted by the President, if you don't have the real mechanism on the ground, you are in trouble.
Okay. Let me have the trade unions now, and I put this to you, Rhoda. You come from the same trade unions that Dr. Rwanga is advocating for. You have heard from the people of Uganda, especially those who are part of us from the other side of radio. Corruption is the extreme. Baguma says that we would take these celebrations down. We only advocate for them, but people down, they don't know about these days that we are celebrating. Investors mistreating the people of Uganda. Private companies, I would say, exploiting the people of Uganda. Someone gets 1 million and is paid 150. That would, I would call it exploitation. Working for companies and factories for extra hours which are not paid for. So many concerns coming from the people of Uganda. Working for companies that they don't remit their NSSF money. Taxation, their rights, minimum wage, and so many other concerns. And Dr. Rwanga says, we only need you, the trade unions.
Thank you so much. I am happy that we recognize the need and the importance of trade unions in Uganda. Thank you so much, Dr. Rwanga, for that voice. You've added a voice to us, and we shall continue to speak. I want to start with the issue of celebrating Labor Day. The reason why we are celebrating International Labor Day is to create more awareness, to educate our people further, to know that every individual worker has rights. Every individual worker has a right to speak, has a right to good working conditions, and they have a right to join trade unions. Picking up from the discussions that have taken place, Dr. Abdul also said it, that we need to give trade unions platform. There is need for negotiation. There is need for collective bargaining. The challenge that we have is access to these organizations, especially the private employers, the Chinese. I said it earlier on, and I'm happy that it is coming from the audience, which gives us a excuse me, which gives us a picture and strength that people are hearing and they are seeing and they are asking government, because government is our biggest employer in Uganda, and the laws that will govern and help these people are supposed to be formulated and enacted and implemented by the governing structures. Therefore, I would encourage us as trade unions, us as workers, employees and employers to come together, put our heads together. We normally present our statements to the president, and sometimes the president even has questions to ask from there. Picking up from there, after the Labor Day celebrations, we need to get to the drawing board, see how we can engage to ensure that these employers, the informal sector, it is true and unfortunate that you go to Owino, they will tell you they don't know about Labor Day, because this is informal employment. Somebody has put his money into investment and is working. But we, as NOTU, we have a union that employs in the informal sector, that is the Markets and Allied Workers Union. It is recruiting from the informal sector. At least they are able to come together and speak. They are able to raise their voices. We appreciate even the effort they have done to stand and rise up against the taxation, which is all a result of awareness. We as NOTU and trade unions at large, we continue to create awareness. Like before, we shall continue to speak to the people, and we appreciate UBC that every year we are invited here to speak to the people. And as you hear the response of the public, you really see that they are speaking out their mind. Okay. Speaking about security organizations, it is true, these people protect big investments. They provide, they offer themselves to provide security to the big sums of money which is picked by bullion funds, and they are paying little money. I want to encourage the security organizations that already, if you know of KK Security, they are members of Amalgamated Transport and General Workers Union. We shall continue to speak and encourage other unions that can recruit from the security organizations. We shall share the experience, but I'm informing the security personnel outside there that already KK Security is a member of Amalgamated Transport and General Workers Union. They are able to negotiate. They are able to handle their grievances. They are able to handle issues of compensation. If you look around, I think KK...
Are their workers paid much better compared to other private companies?
I may not say that they are paid much better, but at least their conditions of working are negotiated and they are agreed, and they work in an amicable situation. I would strongly encourage the trade unions, Minister,
give me some
to come.
If you can give me some minutes, brother. Hello, you are live and clear on UBC radios.
Yes.
Joshua, you're welcome.
Thank you.
This is UBC radios. We are live on 5 radio stations, and I would love to get it from you about International Labor Day that we are about to join the rest of the world to commemorate.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the nation. Uganda, like in all the past years, joining the rest of the world to celebrate International Labor Day. Mm-hmm. This time round, we started this week, where we had the OSH Day, which was celebrated in Mbale. OSH stands for Occupational Safety and Health. And now next week, on International Labour Day, we'll be in Fort Portal, where we'll be joining the rest of the country to take stock of the achievements in achieving labor justice. So this year, the theme will be improving access to labor justice, a prerequisite for increased productivity. And we will be in Fort Portal City at Mukabura grounds at St. Leo's College in Fort Portal. And of course, already there is a team from the ministry with other stakeholders in Fort Portal City, where we have been running a number of activities throughout the week under what we call the Labor Week. There are a number of activations. There are labor inspectors also visiting workplaces within the Fort Portal City to see how compatible they are to the requirements of the law.
Why did we choose Fort Portal this time?
Yes, Fort Portal has been on the radar for a long time. Districts request the ministry, make request to the ministry to host. And it is on that account that that region was selected to host this time around. So there was no debate between the different local governments, and we zeroed on Fort Portal for this purpose. It is also because the Fort Portal area has a number of workplaces. You have tea estates, you have a number of things, and this theme will be talking to those issues.
Interesting. We are celebrating International Labour Day, but when people of Uganda have different concerns, especially on realizing labor justice, what has been the contribution of the ministry to make sure that the workers in this country have been helped in one way or the other?
Of course, the key mandate of the ministry is to put in place policies to support labor justice. For example, before Parliament now, we have the OSH bill, which was tabled before Parliament. OSH, the OSH, Occupational Safety and Health Amendment Bill, is before Parliament. It is looking at a number of issues. For example, it is looking at obligating the employers to put in place a number of things. For example, within the law, employers are obliged to provide safety gears to workers in certain places of work. And the ministry has inspectors on the ground under the OSH department who move around workplaces to see if the employers have put this in place. We find that in some places this is not the case. We engage the employers to ensure that they put them in place, but we now need to back this up with the law. What do we do in case people are not putting this in place as required by the law? Then the other one is, what is the capacity of the ministry to do the investigations, the inspections across the country? We are looking at expanding this role by having many inspectors across the country to ensure that the employers oblige with the requirements of the law. Of course, there are others. Under the NSSF Act, employers are supposed to remit a certain percentage of money off the workers' pay, and also which is matched up by contribution from the employer. And you find that a number of employers try to avoid this, and in a way, it affects the workers. So there are a number of things, but workers' rights is a struggle. we are in the struggle, and I'm sure that with the involvement of other stakeholders, a lot has been achieved. Within this week again, there was the second annual National Convention on Labor, second annual National Labor Convention. A number of issues were talked about, including people from the Justice Department. We had also the Minister for Justice. We also had justices of the High Court, justices of the the people who are responsible for arbitrating matters of trader of workers were also there. We had Justice Tumusime, who made a presentation, a passionate appeal on issues of how we can, what happens if, where is the recourse, for example, if the employer does not oblige? You have to go to the courts of law, and these ones are provided for under the law. So there's a lot that is happening within the space of labor in the country, and we must say, as the ministry, that we are making giant strides in the road to achieving labor justice in the country.
And that was about labor justice, but we're also looking at the increasing productivity. What do you think we need to do as a country, maybe to prioritize, make sure that we have increased productivity as we celebrate International Labor Day 2024?
Of course, whatever we are talking about also has an implication on the productivity of labor. For example, for people to be productive, they must have a job satisfaction. And job satisfaction comes with a number of things. One of it is the pay. Is the pay commensurate to what people are putting in? The other one looks at the environment, the work environment. Is the work environment conducive for productivity? So there are a number of things, but also the other one is the issue of skilling. Do people have the right skills for the kind of jobs they are undertaking? Now, a number of studies have pointed to the fact that the productivity of our labor is not that good, and efforts are being put in place by government to ensure that our people have the right skills, the work environment is also good, the pay is commensurate to what people are putting on, and this one we hope can help improve the productivity.
Interesting. We let you still organize for the event, but there are so many concerns coming in from the people of Uganda. Lack of breastfeeding rooms, they don't get holidays, they don't get sick leaves, they don't get compensations when they get accidents or other injuries, especially at workplaces. There is sexual harassment. People lack personal protective gears or equipments, and I believe that you have that Office of Industrial Relations. How should these people come to the ministry to be helped out? Are there procedures that they have to take?
Yes, the ministry works through different entities. We have the labor arbitration courts within the ministry, and where it fails, we have a separate entity that handles issues of arbitration between workers. You can take the matter through the judicial system. So yes, there are still a number of challenges, which I hope that the steps are being put in place to ensure that there is labor justice.
Interesting. Your last comment, sir, and you would conclude with your names and your role, and as you wish the people of Uganda best of International Labor Day.
Thank you very much. I want again to thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about this issue. This day is for the people of Uganda. Fort Portal is only the hosts, but you will be getting visitors from across the world, from across the country, who will be descending on Fort Portal. Of course, there are benefits to a city or a local government hosting a day like this, because we believe that once the many people come to Fort Portal, which is a tourism city, they also bring the resources. So the economy, the local economy of Fort Portal will benefit. That apart, we believe that the issues that we'll be talking about will be for the good of this country and will go a long way in increasing productivity of our labor force and also driving labor justice efforts within the country.
All right. Thank you so very much, and we wish you all the best as we join the rest of the world to commemorate this very important day.
Okay, thank you very much. I remain Joshua Chalimpa. I'm the communication officer for the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
That was Joshua Chalimpa, indeed, as he put it right. He heads communication at the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, the institution of government that is responsible for organizing this very important event, but also is responsible for the labor administration and regulation. It is the same ministry that is responsible for the social protection and social services. It is the same ministry that is responsible for gender and women's empowerment. We also don't forget about children protection and welfare. Also, they consider community development and social mobilization. It is the same ministry that is responsible for research, policy development, and also international cooperation and partnerships. Thank you so very much, Joshua. For the remaining time, I would love to go back to the studios for my guests in the studios to have their parting thoughts and concluding remarks as we wrap up our discussion of today's edition of UBC Ground Zero. Allow me to start with you, Dr. Rwanga.
Thanks very much, Comrade Amon. Indeed, our labor justice, we should take it as a fundamental right which every worker must have, and we should not be on the mercy of whoever. At the same time also, we must be aware that it is very important to maintain a fair and equitable system in our labor market. Protecting workers should be a priority from exploitation. Any unfair exploitation, the government should step in, the trade unions should step in. Indeed, we must ensure that all our people are protected, and this protection against unfair treatment, exploitation, will also lead to a situation where we promote compliance with the laws of the country governing the labor industry. We don't need these excuses that only less than 20% have limited the national social security funds for the workers. What of the rest of the percentage? And what are we going to do to all those people when they get old? Okay? So, our theme here indeed is very, very important, as it highlights the fairness, the effectiveness, and their systems put in place, which should address the disputes, the complaints of the workers. Once that one is done from the working place, you know that the end product is higher productivity, which can translate into economic growth and which can translate into economic development. And now Uganda will be a centerpiece of attracting genuine investors who are ready to tap in with this type of labor. And once labor is productive, you don't need to have these issues of taxation, as we have had a week of a standoff. Even the problem is still there. So I would really encourage all stakeholders to really understand it from the perspective of the employee, or the worker, and the employer. Thanks very much. And lastly, UPC has an office for the workers right from the village to the topmost avenue. So all the workers who have issues may also contact the party, and there is a cabinet position where the current Minister of Workers' Affairs is Mr. Orach Osinde Michael.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wanga.
Yes.
Submit all your final comment on this, and from trade unions as a team Rhoda.
Thank you so much. Sometimes it's not good to speak last, but sometimes it is good. I want to appreciate the theme for this year. It is an eye-opener, and it is a theme of hope. It gives us hope that all the stakeholders have realized that there is need for labor justice. We appreciate the government of Uganda. As trade unions, we have always tried to lobby all sectors, all partners, to ensure that there is fairness. Taking on from the theme, my parting shot is that after the celebrations, we are happy also to notice that this year the celebrations have taken a different direction. We have a whole week of the Labor Week, which is creating awareness. I am aware that NOTU is also having a pre-Labor Day activity in Fort Portal on Tuesday for the whole day. This is all aimed at creating awareness and making people to know what their rights are. I am appreciative again, and with high hopes that this theme alone tells us that we have realized the need for labor justice. And I encourage the stakeholders to come together. My plea is that the stakeholders, trade unions, government, Ministry of Labor and Social Development, we need to come together and help the security organizations, help the informal sector workers, help the private sector workers to achieve collective bargaining. Even in government where we have not signed the collective bargaining agreement with public sector unions, I believe that this theme should help us to head to that. Thank you so much to UBC. Thank you so much to the stakeholders, and the aluta continue to the workers MPs who are struggling to ensure that the minimum wage is put in place. The Employment Act is the act is reviewed, and all the acts, the labor laws are implemented. We thank you because there are steps that have taken place, and we pray that this will continue. The public sector is struggling to ensure that every workplace has a committee. We pray that this theme will support the implementation of all those, and this will lead to increased productivity. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You are most welcome as a team Rhoda, who is the executive board member coming from NOTU, and it was also a privilege having you, Dr. Christopher Wanga, head of research, documentation and ideology, coming from Uganda People's Congress. It was a privilege having Honorable Dr. Abdul Byakatonda, who is the member of parliament representing workers in the parliament of Uganda, and it was a privilege having Joshua Chalimpa, who is the head of communication at the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. It was a privilege having you, our dear listener, from the other side of radios on UBC Butebo, Western Nile, UBC Magic, UBC Radio and Voice of Butebo. The repeat of this program is always on Sunday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. and on Voice of Butebo on Monday. and it is always streaming live. It is always on YouTube. You can always create time and visit UBC Radio, and you'll get this conversation all right there. We've been talking about International Labor Day, and we're looking at the national theme which guided our discussion today: improving access to labor justice, a prerequisite for increased productivity. I believe that you've picked a leaf from our conversation. The people, on this very day, we recognize the contribution of workers, and Labor Day also is set to celebrate the hard work and the achievements of labor groups. The group of people that I would love to celebrate in this edition and on this day are the security personnel, UPDF, Uganda Police Force, Uganda Prison Services, and all private security companies or private security guards. I want to celebrate you on this day. When others are sleeping, you are there watching to make sure that the country is safe and the people of Uganda are safe and their properties are safe. On this day, I celebrate you. UBC stops here and ends now. Until next time, same stations, same programs, same time. Many programs coming your way on all the those radio stations: UBC Butebo, UBC West Nile, UBC Magic, UBC Radio, and Voice of Bundwojo. Ampere Aman Butega is my name, and many thanks to the team and the administration of UBC for God and my country. Allow me now to sign out.
That was Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Uganda will join the rest of the world in commemorating the International Labor Day on Wednesday, 1st May 2024. The day is celebrated in recognition of the dignity of labor and the important contribution that labor makes to the social, economic, and political development of the country. This year's national celebrations will be held at Mukabura Grounds, Fort Portal City, under the theme Improving Access to Labor Justice, a Prerequisite for Increased Productivity. The celebrations will be live on UBC Radio and our sister stations countrywide.
Solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong.
Every Saturday, UBC Radio broadcasts the Information Hub, your one-stop dial radio show. Join us to learn and know more information about innovations, research, and developments. The Information Hub, knowledge is power, on UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
It's hot. sports.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody showed. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Every Saturday, UBC Radio broadcasts the Information Hub, your one-stop dial radio show. Join us to learn and know more information about innovations, research, and developments. The Information Hub, knowledge is power, on UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda. This is UBC Radio. Tune in for news.
At UBC Radio, we bring you Uganda's latest news and information.
Focus on Parliament.
What we need to do, the Prime Minister must give us the position before we finalize the budgeting process.
Enjoy sports. The environment. Politics.
The mission we have is socio-economic transformation.
Health. Entertainment. Updates in education. Keep tuned into UBC Radio. Inspiring
Independent sound.
UBC has 11 sister radio stations spread throughout the country to educate, inform, and entertain. Tune in to UBC Radio FM 98, your national radio station, Magic 100, where sports and music is our life. 87.5 Star FM in Uganda, 97.4 UBC West covering Western Uganda, 102 Mega FM in Gulu, 97 FM Butebo Radio in Eastern Uganda, 107.0 Bududi FM, 100.5 Ngea FM in Kasese, 98.0 West Nile FM in Arua, Total Ray Radio FM 90 in Karamoja, and 93.0 Voice of Mundbujo. Now you're covered in your local language. UBC Radios, inspiring Uganda.
Nakoze budget we kora samare love ni nasibi pampagari hey 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 I will give you romance every time I call your phone love food no mufere every time I call your phone love food no mufere
the Bundesliga, German football league at its best.
They've got the support of the crowd right behind them even before the game starts.
Tune in to UBC Radio every Saturday for the live game commentary, analysis and prediction.
Sané's gone from distance. Oh, Sané!
The Bundesliga, brought to you by Uganda Broadcasting Corporation in partnership with Deutsche Welle.
What a finish! Timo Hubers with a Bundesliga.
The Education Forum program. Education Forum, a platform for trends and developments in the education sector. We are your reference and reliable source of information. The Education Forum, right here on UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
From the sun, that's how my heart is. So far from the things of this world, I'm in love with my Father. Looking at the past, I see what the Lord has done, and that's where my joy is. I testify. Speak a word. Prophesy. Prophesy to the mountains. Go on your knees. You can hear from afar away. Speak a word. Prophesy to the dry bones. Hold your keys, unlock all your doors now. Prophesy. Stop crying.
Saturday, UBC Radio broadcasts the Information Hub, your one-stop dial radio show. Join us to learn and know more information about innovations, research, and developments. The Information Hub, knowledge is power, on UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
Uganda will join the rest of the world in commemorating the International Labour Day on Wednesday, 1st May 2024. The day is celebrated in recognition of the dignity of labour and the important contribution that labour makes to the social, economic and political development of the country. This year's national celebrations will be held at Mukabura Grounds, Fort Portal City, under the theme Improving Access to Labour Justice, a Prerequisite for Increased Productivity. The celebrations will be live on UBC Radio and our sister stations countrywide.
Solidarity forever.